The global economy depends on the seamless movement of goods across oceans and continents. From oil tankers to container ships carrying everything from electronics to food, international trade fuels growth, stability, and prosperity worldwide. But what if a powerful regional actor like Iran managed to exert significant control over critical global trade routes? What would it mean for energy markets, international security, military strategy, global supply chains, and everyday consumers? Today we will talk about what happens if Iran takes control of global trade routes. So, before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. The strategic geography of Iran. Iran sits at a geographically significant crossroads. It borders the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman and stands near one of the world's most important maritime choke points, the Strait of Hormuz. About 20% of the world's crude oil supply and a significant share of liquefied natural gas, LNG, transit this narrow passage every day. Control or even strong influence over this route grants extraordinary leverage over energy markets and global shipping. Iran also maintains influence across the broader Middle East through political, military, and proxy relationships. From Iraq and Syria to Yemen and Lebanon, Iran's network expands its reach beyond its borders. This network gives Tehran not just territorial leverage, but strategic partnerships that could affect land trade routes, pipelines, and regional security alignments. Why trade routes matter? Trade routes are the circulatory system of the global economy. They are the channels through which goods, and increasingly services, move from producers to consumers. When these routes are free, commerce flows, prices stabilize, and economies grow. When they're disrupted, the consequences are immediate and far-reaching. Critical routes include maritime passages like the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, and the Malacca Strait. Each handles vast amounts of international trade. According to industry data, disruptions in these channels can increase shipping costs, delay supply deliveries, and trigger spikes in energy prices virtually overnight. The Strait of Hormuz, a choke point like no other. The Strait of Hormuz is the most consequential choke point adjacent to Iran. At its narrowest point, the strait is only about 21 miles wide, yet nearly one-fifth of the world's daily crude oil passes through it. Natural gas liquids and LNG also make up significant transit volumes. Iran's proximity to the strait gives it potential influence over traffic patterns. In past geopolitical tensions, Iranian naval maneuvers, missile tests, and threats to disrupt passage have caused spikes in global oil prices, even without actual closures. If Iran were to exert direct or indirect control over passage through the strait, the impact would be immense. Energy price volatility. Crude oil and natural gas prices would likely surge due to fears of restricted supply. Supply chain disruptions. Delays and rerouting would increase transport times and costs. Geopolitical tensions. Rival powers, including the United States, China, and European states, could find themselves drawn into confrontations to secure freedom of navigation. Impacts on global energy markets. Oil and gas markets are highly sensitive to perceptions of risk and supply disruptions. Even small changes in expected output or transit reliability can lead to sharp price movements. If Iran controlled or significantly influenced major oil transit points, it could drive energy prices higher. Restricted access or increased risk premiums would inflate global energy costs. Shift energy trade patterns. Countries might accelerate diversification of supply away from Middle Eastern sources. Encourage strategic reserves usage. Nations could tap emergency oil reserves to stabilize markets. Push faster adoption of alternatives. High fossil fuel prices often accelerate investment in renewables and energy efficiency. Higher energy costs affect virtually every sector: transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, and consumer goods, intensifying inflationary pressures worldwide. Geopolitical and military repercussions. Increased Iranian influence over global trade routes would redraw strategic priorities. Major powers with global naval presence, such as the United States, China, Russia, and members of the European Union, would reassess their military deployments and alliances. United States. The U.S. Navy has long maintained a presence in the Persian Gulf to ensure freedom of navigation and secure energy supplies. If Iran's leverage increased, Washington might escalate military patrols, expand coalition operations, or reinforce bases in the region. China. As the world's largest importer of energy, especially oil, China has strategic interest in Persian Gulf security. China has steadily increased defense cooperation and economic ties with Middle Eastern states. Iranian control could push China closer into regional diplomacy or joint security arrangements. Russia has been expanding its influence in Syria and the Eastern Mediterranean. A stronger Iran could align with or complicate Moscow's strategic calculus, potentially reshaping power balances in the Middle East and beyond. These dynamics could increase military spending, heighten regional tensions, and raise the risk of direct confrontations or proxy conflicts. Impact on global supply chains. Global supply chains rely on predictability. Unexpected closures, security risks, or rerouting add costs and delays that ripple through economies. If Iran exerted influence over key shipping lanes, shipping costs would rise. Insurance premiums for cargo crossing high-risk zones would increase. Goods delivery delays. Longer transit routes would create bottlenecks. Inventory costs would increase. Companies might need larger stockpiles to offset delays. Regional trade dynamics could shift. Nations might invest in alternative corridors, such as pipelines, rail links, or overland routes through safer territories. The result would be a more fragmented and expensive global trading environment. Economic impact on importers and exporters. Countries that import large quantities of oil, gas, or manufactured goods would feel immediate impacts. For example, energy-dependent economies. Japan, South Korea, and many European states rely heavily on Middle Eastern oil. Disruptions or price surges could slow economic growth, increase inflation, and strain public finances. Export-driven economies. Nations selling manufactured products, such as China or Germany, would face higher shipping costs and potential delays, eroding competitiveness. Even localized disruptions can cascade internationally, given the interconnected nature of modern trade. The banking and financial sector. Financial markets respond quickly to geopolitical risks. Control or threats over major trade arteries could trigger volatility in oil futures markets. Speculation and risk premiums would rise. Currency market fluctuations. Oil exporting countries' currencies might strengthen, while importers' currencies weaken. Higher risk premiums across asset classes. Investors may move capital into perceived safe haven assets like U.S. Treasuries or gold. Banks and financial institutions would face higher capital requirements and stress on global credit markets due to increased uncertainty. Energy diversification and infrastructure changes. If Iran reshapes control over key trade routes, nations may accelerate infrastructure diversification, including alternative pipelines, building pipelines that bypass sensitive choke points, renewable energy investments, greater urgency for solar, wind, and other low-carbon sources, strategic reserves expansion, enlarging national petroleum reserves, new maritime corridors, investment in overland corridors or alternative sea routes like the Northern Sea route via Arctic waters. These changes would redefine energy geopolitics and supply strategies. Potential impact on global alliances. Iran's expanded role could reshape global alliances. Countries that depend on secure shipping lanes may strengthen regional or global partnerships. Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, nations, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others might deepen security cooperation with Western allies. Non-aligned states. Nations wary of Western military presence might seek new arrangements with Russia or China. Europe. The EU could seek independent security arrangements to protect its energy supplies and trade interests. These shifts would reconfigure diplomatic frameworks developed over decades. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.